Hello, and welcome to Word and Work and Intersection. I'm your host, Dale Meyer. Joining us today is Dr. Mart Thompson. Dr. Thompson is Associate Professor of Practical Theology and the Director of the Specific Ministry Pastor Program. He has recently become a faculty advisor to the Life team here at Concordia Seminary. So we've got a lot to talk about. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. One of the things I'd like to lead off with is to let you, our audience, understand that in one way or another, everything we do here is about telling more people about Jesus. Okay? And one of the ways we do that is through the SMP program. You're the director of that, and describe what the SMP program is.
Sure. Well, SMP stands for Specific Ministry Pastor. And it's aptly titled because it is a ministerial formation program that forms a pastor to serve in a specific ministry. And a good portion of his education is what he learns by applying what he experiences in online classes or on-campus intensive classes in his local ministry setting. And there he has a mentor pastor who works for us here at the seminary. We actually stipend a local ministry pastor who is trained, comes to orientation and receives training, and he helps that student apply what they're learning in real life situations in the parish. And it really enhances his education. The specific ministry pastor has a certification called SMP Certification, which means that his ministry will always be in that ministry setting or that type of ministry setting. And he's very well qualified for that. If he chooses to go on, he can earn a general pastor ministry certification. It requires additional courses, either online or on campus. He can come to the seminary for that. But for the purposes of the SMP program, we find that it is definitely meeting the needs of the church at large in providing pastors.
So let's take a look at what you just said by contrasting it to the residential program. And the residential program is, I believe, what most people think about when they think seminary. I remember a great supporter of the seminary said, "This is wonderful. The boys come to St. Louis to learn how to become pastors." Well, they're not boys anymore, but they do come to St. Louis, often with their families. It's residential. SMP is contextual, meaning John Doe, SMP student, is in upstate New York in a situation that needs a pastor. Okay, so is that contrast correct?
Yes. So we like to describe it as a ministry needs focused program. So it's focused on the specific ministry needs in a local congregation or maybe a mission planting situation. We also have chaplains that are formed through this program, either high school or prison chaplains, things like that.
And one of the advantages then is let's say that we have an SMP student who's in a chaplaincy situation. So they are already doing some ministry, which is different from the residential who start to learn how to do ministry.
Right.
These SMP students are already doing it, and I would presume that the fact that they are doing it but receiving advanced education is really a blessing as they take the theory and they wet it with their practice. Is that true?
That is very true. I hear that from students all the time. They'll say that when I walk out of my office, maybe where I was taking a class online from a seminary professor, I walk into where I'm going to be applying that and teaching confirmation or preaching a sermon or leading worship or doing visitation ministry, those kind of things. And the nice thing about having the local mentor pastor, I remember back when I first graduated from the seminary, you get out there and you learn God's Word, you learn the doctrine at the seminary, And then you go into the classroom of the congregation and you learn about people and how to apply that. And we can sometimes call that school of experience the school of hard knocks. Yeah. And I always tell the students, you know, the tuition is pretty high in the school of experience. Well, in the SMP program, the nice thing about contextual education and the local mentor, and these mentors have been given coach training, they've been taught how to do this mentoring work with these students. They help you along in that school of experience in ways that it might be nice. I think a lot of times we feel it might be nice if I could have that when I'm just out of the seminary as a residential student. Now, I don't want to sell the residential program short. It is, we sometimes say, the gold standard because the amount of coursework in the residential program is definitely greater and enhanced. And the other thing is, as you learn in the biblical languages, you learn Greek and Hebrew and apply those in your exegeting, as we say, or interpretation of the Old and New Testament. So when a student in the SMP program goes on for a general pastor certification, he gets those additional classes and coursework that qualifies him to be a general pastor. But it still doesn't mean that the SMP program, with its contextualized education, isn't very effective in doing what it was designed to do, because it really does a good job of that.
I taught an SMP class last January, and it was wonderful. And one of the things that struck me is these students really want to learn. I mean, they were like sponges. They were very respectful of the residential program. In fact, I think to a man, they said if they could have come residentially, they would. But that was just a wonderful teaching experience for me. I certainly hope that I get to do it again. You mentioned that SMP is a certificate program. How is that different from a residential program?
All right. Great question. So, in order to be an ordained pastor in the LCMS, you need to be certified by the faculty. And so that certification enables you to receive a call and to become the pastor of a specific ministry, pastor, congregation, or general pastor. The degree that many of our residential students receive is called a Master of Divinity degree, an MDiv, as we sometimes describe it. That degree also goes along with certification. But in the SMP program, you can be certified without getting the master's degree. Now, a lot of our students will go on to get a master's degree. They have to take some additional courses, but they can go on and get a Master of Arts degree after the SMP program. And that's a nice degree to have. But as far as the church is concerned, they're looking for that certification for ordination, which is what the certificate program provides for you.
And one of the realities is that it's our residential program that gives the MDiv that is going to provide the professors like yourself and the scholars who are going to help resource the church and teach in the years ahead. They're not going to come out of SMP, most likely,
right.
Correct? So one of the things that I just have to share this with the audience, and you can comment and tell me I'm all wrong, but I have heard, and maybe you have heard, a few people say, well, the only way you can become a full-fledged Lutheran pastor, a real trustworthy pastor, is by going to the residential program. And my reaction is, the residential program is great. That's the preferred option. If you can go residential, by all means, go residential. But here's what I want you to react to, and here's where I'm coming from, because in retirement, the filters are starting to go. How in the world do you and I stand before the Lord Jesus on Judgment Day and say there was a situation, there was a congregation, there was a ministry that could only be filled by an SMP student? And are we going to stand before Jesus on Judgment Day and say, no, we didn't send anybody there because we didn't have a residential graduate? Dr. Thompson, would you please correct me?
Well, no. What you said is generally correct, that that SMP pastors serve in a place where a pastor who is receiving a full-time salary, who has the general pastor certification, would not probably fit there. And I'll explain why that is. Over half of our people in the SMP program, and those who have completed it, will never receive a full-time salary as a pastor. They're going to be serving a small congregation that can't afford a full-time pastor. Or they'll be serving a congregation perhaps that had 2 full-time pastors in the past, but now can only afford, say, 1.5. And so they have identified local men who have the gifts and the talents to be a pastor.
And they are vetted. It's not like some guy wanders in off the street and says, I want to become a...
Exactly. In fact, if you can imagine, a congregation is not going to put a student forward to become their SMP pastor, their specific ministry pastor, if they don't have a lot of confidence in him up front. They know him. They say, I can envision you being our pastor. And it's not like in the traditional route where, well, we're going to get to know you as soon as you arrive here and are installed and then become our pastor. Mm-hmm. You already know the person and you have a lot of confidence in him. And so because of that, we have very few problems with placement. And in the SMP program, that person ends up serving in that ministry for their career, unless extenuating circumstances arise, which are rare, but sometimes they do. Yeah. But they will serve there for their career.
Audience, this is why I said at the start, Concordia Seminary, in one way or other, is focused on telling people about Jesus. Tell me about the enrollment right now.
Right now we have 109 students in the program.
That's pretty full up, isn't it?
It is pretty full up, yeah. Ever since the program started, we've had a robust enrollment. We have over 30 new students this year, counting the spring and the fall cohorts. I'll be heading out, or I already have started, but I'll be going and doing vicarage visits this fall for our second-year students. I have 33 visits scheduled over the course of the next few months all over the country. So yeah, the program enrollment is strong, and that all happens without us doing, this is the biggest promotional piece I've ever done with the SMP program. We have a website and word of mouth, and people come to us because it's meeting a need that is out there.
That's wonderful, wonderful. And this program was initiated by the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod in Convention.
That's right.
Tell me about how COVID has impacted the instruction.
Well, we are built as an online distance education program with state-of-the-art distance learning strategies. So in one way, it's not really affected us too much at all, because we've been teaching people in the way a lot of folks have just learned to receive education for a long time. But it has impacted us because the guys can't come on campus right now for orientation, so we do that online. They can't come for intensive classes, and so all of those are online, and they love being on campus. They feel like they are part of the seminary. Yes. And they're loved here, and they love being here.
Yeah, it's just a wonderful program, and I'm so thankful the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod in Convention quite a few years ago established this program. This has been Word and Work, an Intersection. I'm Dale Meyer, and I thank you for joining us today. May the intersection of Word and Work really be busy on your corner.